I have to apologize at the beginning because last year I was very inspired about the presentations on drawing your own slides. So I decided to try that this year. I'm very sorry about the results. Some background. About 2 years ago, I joined a development team, and I use quotes because we had a separate validation team. And the development team actually delivered 2 drivers for the Android platform. One was RenderScript, one was OpenCL. Both drivers basically do the same thing on the hardware, but they have different APIs because Google and Apple don't like each other. So what basically we had was 3 teams, the RenderScript team, the OpenCL team, and the poor people that were validating this. And we decided to try Agile. Now in all of this, I was a program manager and an Agile coach. No one booing? Okay. Anyway, we started with the naive approach, which is our to-do in Kanban would have our swim lane for the RenderScript folks, the swim lane for the OpenCL folks, right? And the 2 never would mingle because why would they? And this had the obvious problems of if half of the OpenCL people were out, then only the RenderScript work got done and so on. And actually the first big shakeup did not come because we realized this was not working very well. It was because one of the famous corporate initiatives of reducing the bug count. So the corporation basically said you have to get down your bug count, and so what we did was we put bugs in the to-do list. So now we had a swim lane for the bugs, a swim lane for the features, and guess which side actually moved, right? Because everyone loves debugging. Well, maybe the one guy on our team. The other problem was actually being able to tell which bugs were the most important to fix, which were causing the most pain or impacting our testing, and we were thinking, who would know this? And we struggled for several months until we realized that, hey, we have these people called validation, and that they understand these things. Hi, Slavik. And we started pulling in our validation leads into these decision-making sessions. And not only did this help us actually prioritize the bugs, but also got us working closer with the validation team. And over the past 2 years, this has been a really great relationship, and we've been growing closer, and I can envision a future before I retire where we'll be a cross-functional team, finally. I think I have 30 more years if the government doesn't change anything else. Another big problem we had, and that we caused ourselves, was we wanted to make everyone on the development team happy to pick up a task. This might have been because we were trying this new Agile stuff, so we didn't want to discourage people. So me and my manager would spend literally hours looking at the backlog, looking at the to-do, and thinking that, Tomek really wanted to try this module, so let's pick out a task for him for that module. And, Jacek is going on vacation, so let's make sure that there's something small so he can finish up before he goes on vacation. And of course, this completely ignored the value of the tasks. This ignored any priorities we had, and it took a really, really long time, trying to juggle tasks for 8 to 12 people and make sure we take into account when they'll be done with their current one and when they'll be able to start the next one. We realized this was not going very well. Fortunately, we're, smart people, and we learned our lessons, so we started involving validation more. We started asking people to work cross-functionally, and we actually ended up dropping the difference between RenderScript, between OpenCL, between bugs and features, and just prioritize the whole backlog together and just give a small selection of things to do for people to work effectively. And this was pretty lucky because after about a year, the Android work was drying up a bit. Meanwhile, Linux was spinning up really big, and if you follow Intel news, you'll know this. But our Linux team was needed a lot of help, and the work between Linux and Android is very similar. So we decided to combine the teams and have them work off one backlog, and there would be very few actual Android tasks. Most of them would be Linux tasks, but the Android team was up to it. But, you know, bigger team, we need a bigger to-do list, right? Because there's more people, they have to be able to choose out of more things. And this led to another issue we had, which was we were very happy and very quick to agree on the top 4 or 5 things that needed to be done. We would fill up the to-do after our weekly backlog grooming session. The problem was that when we had to pull the last 2-3 things into to-do, all of them were of similar value, and people's personal preferences started to play a big role. And we, again, spend lots of time discussing these small value items, trying to compare things that might not even be done, or shouldn't be done right now because they're low value, but we spend the most of the time discussing this, which was another waste. Fortunately, we realized this, I think, after the second backlog grooming session, so we quickly moved to a much shorter to-do, which had the value of not only did people have to choose something from the high value items, but also it cut down these long, never-ending discussions. To aid, so we moved into a model where we had a very short to-do, but we would fill it up every day after the stand-up in case something got pulled. So we actually had 4 things in the to-do list. 3 of them were product items, and 1 was some internal improvement. So we had some balance between those 2 work types. And we realized we could leverage Kanban to make to-do selection easier. So left of the to-do, we actually had 2 columns, or we have 2 columns. One is what we call the real backlog, and the right column, which was under consideration. And for a work item to get into under consideration, it had to meet 2 things. First of all, it had to be well groomed, so it had to be well defined, had a clear definition of done, have some t-shirt sizing. We used t-shirt sizing. But the other thing was it had to be actually championed by someone. Now, very basically, this might have been me as the program manager, might have been my manager as the team's manager, might have been one of our stakeholders who said that they really need this. But it could have also come from any of the engineers working on the team, indicating that fixing this or implementing this would be very useful at this point. And anyone could move items into under consideration, but it was basically my decision as program manager to move things into to-do. But this allowed us, instead of looking through a backlog of 100 items and reprioritizing it, just look maybe at the 10, 12 items that someone really wanted and make sure they were clearly defined. And again, this could not have been done without making sure our backlog was very clean and up to speed. And when I actually started with the team, and we built up a paper board because I'm a very big fan of actual tactile experiences. I tried putting the whole backlog on our pin board, and the backlog was so thick that I couldn't get the pin in. And this led me to actually split the backlog into pieces, which taught me a valuable lesson. I can actually split the backlog into pieces and analyze it in this way instead of as one big stack of items, which me and my manager would lovingly review every week, just going through all the pieces of paper. And every so often finding items that had expired because they've been in this big thick stack so long that maybe the hardware was end of life. So those are the lessons we've learned. I hear it's best to learn from mistakes, and even better to learn from other people's mistakes. So I hope you learned something today. Thank you.